The Russian Empire was one of the largest empires in history, spanning over 3 centuries and covering vast territories across Europe and Asia. Its origins can be traced back to the late 16th century, when the Tsardom of Russia emerged as a major power in Eastern Europe. At the time, Russia was ruled by the Romanov Dynasty, which had come to power in 1613. Under the leadership of Tsar Peter the Great, who ruled from 1682 to 1725, Russia underwent a period of modernization and expansion. Peter the Great was a visionary leader who sought to transform Russia into a European-style power. He introduced a series of reforms aimed at modernizing the economy, the military, and the social structure of the country. He also embarked on a series of military campaigns aimed at expanding Russia's borders. One of Peter's most significant achievements was the founding of the city of St. Petersburg in 1703. Located on the Baltic Sea, St. Petersburg became Russia's new capital and a symbol of its growing power and influence in Europe. Under Peter's successors, the Russian Empire continued to expand, conquering vast territories in Siberia, Central Asia, and the Caucasus. By the end of the 18th century, Russia had become one of the largest empires in the world, stretching from Poland in the west to Alaska in the east. However, the empire's rapid expansion also brought with it a number of challenges. The vast size and diversity of the empire made it difficult to govern effectively, and tensions between different ethnic and religious groups often boiled over into violence. Despite these challenges, the Russian Empire continued to thrive throughout the 19th century, becoming a major player on the world stage. However, the empire's days were numbered, and in 1917 it was overthrown by the Bolsheviks, who established the Soviet Union. The 19th century was a period of great change and transformation for the Russian Empire. It was a time of rapid industrialization, urbanization, and social upheaval. One of the most significant developments of this period was the abolition of serfdom in 1861. For centuries, serfdom had been a cornerstone of the Russian social and economic system, with millions of peasants living in a state of virtual slavery. The abolition of serfdom was a major step forward for Russia, but it also created new challenges. Many former serfs struggled to adapt to their newfound freedom, and the rural economy was thrown into turmoil. At the same time, the Russian Empire was undergoing a period of rapid industrialization. New factories and mills sprang up across the country, powered by the country's vast reserves of coal and iron. This industrialization brought with it a new class of urban workers who often lived in squalid conditions and worked long hours for low pay. These workers became a powerful force for change, organizing strikes and protests in an effort to improve their working conditions and gain greater political rights. The 19th century also saw the emergence of a new class of educated professionals, including lawyers, doctors, and journalists. These intellectuals played an important role in shaping public opinion and advocating for political reform. Despite these changes, the Russian Empire remained an autocratic state, with power concentrated in the hands of the Tsar and his advisors. This led to growing discontent among the population, and by the early 20th century, calls for political reform had reached a fever pitch. The early 20th century was a tumultuous time for the Russian Empire. The country was beset by political unrest, economic turmoil, and social upheaval. In 1905, a wave of protests and strikes swept across the country, sparked by a massacre of peaceful demonstrators in St. Petersburg. The protests were met with brutal repression, but they also forced the government to make some concessions, including the establishment of an elected parliament, or Duma. However, the Duma was largely powerless, and the Tsar retained ultimate control over the government. This led to growing frustration among reformers, who continued to push for greater political rights and freedoms. The outbreak of World War I in 1914 only added to the country's woes. The war put a tremendous strain on the Russian economy and military, and the government's handling of the conflict was widely criticized. In February 1917, a series of protests and strikes erupted in Petrograd, the capital of the Russian Empire. The protests quickly spread to other cities, and the government was unable to contain them. On March 15, 1917, Tsar Nicholas Roman II was forced to abdicate, bringing an end to the Romanov Dynasty and the Russian Empire. A provisional government was established, but it was weak and ineffective, and it was soon challenged by the Bolsheviks, a radical socialist party led by Vladimir Lenin. In October 1917, the Bolsheviks seized power in a coup, establishing the world's first communist government. The Russian Empire was no more, replaced by the Soviet Union, a new state based on Marxist principles. The establishment of the Soviet Union marked a new chapter in Russian history. The country was transformed into a socialist state, with the means of production and distribution controlled by the government. Under the leadership of Lenin and his successor, Joseph Stalin, the Soviet Union underwent a period of rapid industrialization and modernization. New factories and infrastructure projects were built across the country, and the economy grew at an unprecedented rate. However, this growth came at a tremendous cost. Millions of people were forced to work in harsh conditions, and political dissent was brutally suppressed. Stalin's policies of collectivization and industrialization led to widespread famine and hardship, particularly in rural areas. Despite these challenges, the Soviet Union emerged as a major world power, with a strong military and a vast empire stretching across Eastern Europe and Asia. The country played a key role in World War II, helping to defeat Nazi Germany and establish the post-war order. However, the Soviet Union's dominance was not to last. In the 1980s, the country began to experience economic and political stagnation, and calls for reform grew louder. In 1991, the Soviet Union was dissolved, and the Russian Federation was established as an independent state. The country faced many challenges in the years that followed, including economic turmoil, political instability, and social unrest. Today, Russia remains a major player on the world stage, with a rich history and culture that continues to shape its identity. The legacy of the Russian Empire and the Soviet Union can still be felt in many aspects of Russian society, from its political system to its artistic traditions.